Large health insurer Medibank was involved in a cyber breach. Cyber criminals claim to have stolen 200 terabytes of client data from Medibank. According to the insurer, this data may contain personal information like addresses, Medicare numbers, and even credit card numbers, as well as information about medical procedures and diagnoses. Medibank has unreservedly apologised for the most recent significant data breach to damage a major Australian corporation, and has issued a warning that there may be more victims in the future. The criminal claims to have stolen other information, including data related to credit card security, which has not yet been verified by our investigations, the insurer said in a statement. Stolen credit cards and ID documents are one thing, but what are the implications of stolen health records?
Joining me today is Sean Duca from Palo Alto Networks and Wayne Williamson, Equifax of Australia. Okay, so another Australian breach. Now, Wayne and I used to work at the same bank, so that's how I know you, so thanks for coming on the show. And, it's one thing to, have money stolen from your account. You can get it replaced. But when you're talking about health records, like this is another game. So I don't think we've ever seen something to this fidelity in Australia, Sean. I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, that's correct. It's the first time we've sort of really seen this from, a large scale. But it's also one of those things that we've also seen this happen somewhere around the world as well. So I think it's more a case of, whatever we're going to sort of experience today in terms of sort of what's coming out in the news, I think that there's potentially some challenges that we may end up sort of experiencing, or particularly the individuals that have actually had their data compromised. They may experience, some sort of targeted, phishing emails. They may actually sort of experience some people that are really trying to sort of push the envelope somewhat around sort of extortion levels. Right. They may actually sort of experience some other things around sort of credit card or financial type of attacks as well. So the possibility is potentially a little bit sort of, limitless, because we don't really know how far someone could actually take it. And it's more a case of, someone could do something today or they could do it in 5 years.
Wayne?
No, look, I totally agree, and I was going to say it's going to be the focus on extortion, really. And the mechanisms of how they're going to do that is with the information that they have at hand. But Sean nailed it, where they have time on their side. So they can sit on it, they can do it next month, they can do it in a year's time. And we as individuals will drop our guard. So we'll forget that this happened, we'll move on, and next thing you know, you're checking your email and you've clicked that link.
Yep.
That's an interesting point you raised, forget that this has happened. Do you think when these types of breaches, of course, like the dust settles, but do you think it'll take perhaps longer? Because this is, again, it's not just financial records, these are quite personal, intimate details of people. What are your thoughts on that? Well, time will tell, and then another 10 breaches will happen and this one will get buried, or?
Yeah, look, we're only away from the next breach, right? So the next breach will then overshadow what's happened. You've sort of seen that outplay with Optus being in the media, and then it's been Medibank and those aspects there.
Sure.
My deal was caught up in the middle. That sort of went in and out of the media quite quickly because it was overshadowed by those 2 points. So yes, there's another one that's probably around the corner that's going to do that. But from a personal perspective, I don't think as a citizen we know what the data is worth. We don't know the mechanisms of what it's going to be in. Some individuals will probably care, maybe overcare.
What do you mean by overcare? How do you overcare?
They would probably get anxiety around what it is, where there's probably no mechanism to really worry about the data they have. They may have been a member, they might not have even used any sort of features, which means, yes, their Medicare number is exposed or something like that, which is replaceable. Those things are replaceable, right? They can go through that process. Date of birth, different challenge, all those sorts of points. But again, what is the data and what do they get of those individuals, and do we actually know? Credit card, banks will support and cover and change. You can change your credit card details in that as well. So those sorts of things, I will probably get a little bit more anxiety around what it is, and unless they really understand those impacts.
What about sort of the sensitivity though? Like, the last thing I would want is, someone potentially trawling through my medical records and, potentially using it as blackmail. Are we going to see these types of things coming out off the back of this breach, or?
We could. That's the thing, that we don't sort of really know how far and wide it could actually sort of go right now. But I think in the end, it's going to be more a case of probably prepare yourself, because we don't really know which way the attacker could decide to
How do we prepare ourselves?
it's prepare ourselves more from the sense of, probably to Wayne's point, there's going to be people that are thinking that this is just going to sort of blow over and it'll be done.
Right.
5 years from now, we could actually experience, the ramifications of some of this information being out there.
Sure.
I probably even sort of go as far as saying where the US was, let's say maybe 10 years ago, is probably where Australia is at right now.
That's worrying.
Which is concerning. But I think it's also a case of, for organisations, start to think about it. This could actually happen to you. For the individuals, unfortunately, this is probably a time where information is out there. There is sort of the unfortunate victims of this.
Sure.
But I think it's more a case of, we need to probably start banding together to work out what's the right level of information that should be held on us, and then start to work out how do organisations actually start to prepare and control that and secure that as much as they can. I think for many years we've probably just had this notion that let's just collect data because it's probably going to provide some sort of intrinsic value in the future.
Sure.
If you think about it, it's akin to bushfire prevention. We start doing backburning leading up to summer because we start to have all this foliage laying around. Well, we've got all this extra data that's probably been there for the last 10 years. Let's backburn and get rid of some of that stuff, because that's the data that we actually need is the data that we should be holding on to, and in turn protecting that data.
So I just want to press a little bit more on that point. So one thing that's come in my mind as you're speaking, Sean, is do you think that over time, because of what's happened in the market, especially in Australia, will people become desensitized? Like, oh, it's another breach, like who cares? Will we get to that stage? It's, like this Medibank breach, for example, and the details are still to be confirmed, but sensitivity of someone's medical history and procedures is quite private. And of course will we get to a stage where we just don't care as much because it's happening left, right and centre?
I think so. And I think the reason for that is, if we start hearing a story every single week or every single couple of days that there has been a brand new cyber incident that's taking place,
sure,
people will start to just drown out. And I think that's the way that we've seen things around the globe actually take place. But it's more a case of what could we do differently, and I think we have to change the course of what's going on. And that's more probably going to be from the organisational standpoint. But at the same time, I think for the individuals, we need to just keep on raising awareness around what's going on. Do something different, I think, is the fundamental key piece.
Right.
When the US released, I think it was in California in particular, it was the SB 1386 was their actual sort of data protection notification laws.
Yep.
It literally was every single day. You went to a hotel, you got compromised. It was just one of those things, every single time you kept on receiving breach notification letters. Mm-hmm. People would just simply drown out and go like, well, my data's out there now, so it's, damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, well, no, we can change the course some way. And we can start to think about how do we protect that information. I think that's where organisation has to work, or the industries have to work together with, government to work out what's the best way that we can try and solve this and tackle it together.
So is that a good or a bad thing then? Because it's like, if you're an executive sitting there saying, oh, well, customers don't really care because there's breaches happening left, right and centre, maybe we don't have to enforce as much security. And I guess from a regulation and a government perspective, but if people don't care, is it going to force executives to think and take security seriously?
I think changes are afoot. I think we all sort of know that one. The Australian Institute of Company Directors have actually sort of released their guiding principles around, some of the changes that are going to take place for company directors. We know that the privacy laws are going to be changing. Obviously, fines are increasing, but I don't think that's just the actual silver bullet that's there. I don't think there is a silver bullet.
Sure.
But I think more around the laws of how do we actually protect the data and enforce those laws, I think is something that we need to start thinking about and start doing, because irrespective of someone is blasé about the fact of like, well, my data's out there, big deal, an organisation has been entrusted with the data that they've actually collected from an individual or they actually have on an individual. So protect it. And I think that's the key part.
So Wayne, I'm going to go to you. Do you think it's going to be hard now for Medibank to regain trust in the market?
It's a difficult one. Potentially, yes, from where it is, and the unknowns that are coming down to it from being a health-related data.
Sure.
But also historically, I don't know, because if we look at other breaches that have occurred, humans were amazing in how we just forget and then respond and then go back to either a good deal that they're offering or those sorts of things and gravitate towards those sorts of attributes. I think we'll be able to forgive and forget and move into that direction when you start seeing the transformation journey and their communications post-breach on what they're doing as an organisation. I think savvy people, if you don't see that, will tend to stay away and be a little bit more reserved and look for a competitor. But the same thing can happen at a competitor. So it's what are they going to do post this breach? What are they going to take? How are they going to communicate that out? How are they going to be more transparent? And it just doesn't stop and be contained around the breach itself. It's got a journey now after that of what are they investing in? What does that look like? What are they actually going to be? Do they want to be a leader in security? This is the approach that we took at Equifax. Yes, we've been in that position. How do we start regaining trust? And a lot of it just comes back to transparency.
I think that the more that someone would play and it plays out where someone is more of a secure organisation, so to speak, and that could still be them. That could still be their competitors as well. This could actually be maybe the differentiator. This is how we actually intend on protecting your information moving forward. This is what we're going to do, and the more transparent you are on that, I think it's probably going to how you're going to regain trust and probably even sort of work to a better place moving forward.
So a couple of things on that. Do you think, as you sort of alluded to, Wayne, is it time heals all wounds? Do you think there's a little bit of that in this sort of situation?
I'd like to say, but Equifax, we still get brought up into many of the breach conversations.
Sure.
We've spent $1.5 billion in terms of transforming our technology and security into that viewpoint. We've hired 600 individuals across the globe just to focus on security. But yes, we're still brought into breach conversations. So it's a difficult one in the sense that we can demonstrate, we can be a lot more transparent. We produce annual security statements and reports out to everyone to read. But yeah, on the flip side, you're still being brought into it. But I guess the journey here that we're talking about and what we can stand strong with is what we did post that breach. And we can lead into the industry, share that knowledge and wealth with everyone. And that's what I'd be looking for out of these breaches with these organisations is, yes, what are they doing next? And they're always going to be talked about. Optus, Medibank, they're very large into what they are. So they'll be in that category that Equifax is in. But yeah, the focus now is, well, this is what they actually did post that.
So would you say that this is an opportunity for Medibank to say, hey, yes, there was a situation, there was a breach, but this is what we're doing now moving forward into a new ground, and this is how we approach cybersecurity. So this is an opportunity for them to regain that trust back, akin to
indeed, 100%. 100% is the biggest opportunity for them now to turn around and say, this is what's happened. Well, everyone knows what's happened. How do we become that leader in security, right? How do we start leading and driving at the forefront of what this industry needs?
Yep, and I think the more that someone could actually do that, and let's just say from a technical element, when you actually do have the information first and foremost, what actually took place. I think if you shared that with the community, I think people automatically see it's like, okay, you're actually starting to lead a little bit more. That automatically will start to put probably an organisation in a better light because now I can better defend my own organisation based on the learnings from someone else, someone who was unfortunately sort of the victim there. But then also, how do we start to change the way that we think about it, our attitudes, our approach? What would you do to attract and retain sort of your customers that are there? Well, you're going to do something different. And I think that's to Wayne's point, that's the transformational piece. You show that, you prove that, great, that's going to sort of help you and put you in probably a good step. Let's use this as an opportunity to try and work out what's a better way moving forward, not only for them, but for everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say a sad response would be we identified the internal process that didn't work and we've stopped that process or removed that individual from the organisation. And as well, that's a very poor culture and not the direction you'd want to see an organisation go post a breach.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Sean.
No,
appreciate both of you coming on the show and sharing your wonderful insights with our audience today.
Awesome, thank you.
That's all we have time for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. I'm your host, Karissa Breen.